When ordinary people think of autumn, they imagine shorter days, cozy fires, curling up with a great piece of literature, and basking in the warming scent of cinnamon with shades of burnt orange, which your other half has decided to spend the life savings on to decorate the home for only 2 months, just as God intended. Yet we must remember that this transition into the frosty abyss of winter creates the perfect conditions for the spread of the pathogen known as Halloween. This disease causes people to dress like demons and go door to door asking for free stuff. This public service announcement aims to give you the correct tool to help you deal with these contagious commie behaviours when they manifest in your local community. First, you'll want to arm yourself with multiple shots of the best-selling paperback on Amazon called The Nephilim Looked Like Clowns. With this PPE, you're fully equipped and well protected to handle what's to come next. Second, have a pumpkin spice latte and white girl autumn your time away in knitted cream shackets and pilgrim hats, because soon enough, Samhain begins. This is when the veil between the spirit realm and the physical world is at its thinnest, and possession, the main symptom of Halloween, is more commonly presented, causing this type of unironic cringe to start happening. Just look at him. This poor soul thinks he looks cool. And if you're not careful, this could be you. Together we can stop the spread of Halloween and flatten the curve. When you see fully grown adults playing dress-up and mirroring unspeakable horrors from beyond the void, remember your training and cure their vapid sense of self-identity by handing them one of our favourably reviewed treatments. Your country must develop herd immunity to seasonal cringe. So, spread the cure far and wide. Just like the cure, this disease does not discriminate by age. Emulating the infected, you will see children running around in bedsheets, knocking on doors, begging for sugary treats, and threatening to damage your well-earned property. Make sure to fill their novelty buckets with the one thing all children secretly want: a well-rounded and relatable education in biblical history. That'll stop the spread. The Nephilim Look Like Clowns and the inevitable boost of volumes are currently the only known cure to thinly veiled demon channeling holidays. This is your best defense against this pandemic of spooky proportions. All you have to do is trust the science. Which you know we did, because I'm showing you people wearing lab coats and looking serious. Get your copy on Amazon today, and be prepared for tomorrow. Side effects of reading The Nephilim Look Like Clowns include, but are not limited to, a feeling of existential crisis, a well-rounded knowledge of a Christian contrarian view on human history, a foundational understanding of spiritual warfare, and a healthy aversion to clowns.
Hello everyone, how are we all doing? Come on in, sit on down, it's time for a live Q&A session. Here I am. Sorry I took so long. I have just been talking with Greg over at the Link YouTube channel about what I'm going to talk about briefly today, the anime manga series, which is like over 5 years old now. It's quite old, called Berserk. And he was sharing with me all these things he saw within it, which seem to link to Antichrist figures, fallen angels, demonic encounters, the Millennial Kingdom, like a savior archetype running through a lot of modern media, through the character, the main protagonist of Guts, and he talked about Link from Legend of Zelda. It was a really interesting talk. It was really fascinating. And I'm going to post that maybe tomorrow or the next day. I'm just going to go through the renderings of the audio we've recorded, and just to check it's okay, if any normalization he's doing, or if any extra images might need throwing in. But towards the back end of the talk, the last hour, we really got into like what it means to be a Christian today, the truth of culture online, and the growing sense of community of Christendom, which seems to be on the up. with a new generation in a new way, in a new style. It was really fun. It was a fun conversation. Really, it was good fellowship. Let's put it that way. So I'm looking forward to release that to you guys. I think you'll enjoy it. And it was just a thinking out loud conversation for the back half. And the first half, he shared his presentation, just laying out the story of Berserk. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I've never watched it. And I tried my best. I had a couple of hours spare just before I arranged to talk with him. And I found the 1997 anime of Berserk, the English dubbed version, which is just awful. But I went through it at like 2 times speed, and I managed to smash through like 7 episodes of it. So to get the gist of the introduction. And he's just gone ahead and spoiled the entire story for me by summarizing the entire thing. So, but it was interesting, and there's certainly a lot of parallels there. To the end of a golden age and the falling of humanity in the world into an age of darkness, coming out of the Millennial Reign into Satan's season. The mythos seems to definitely run through the entire series, so I'm looking forward to watching the rest of it. And once I've quickly got through the whole thing and whatever I can consume around that idea and that concept and the season, because I know there's a lot of versions out there, a lot of remasters, and a lot of things that aren't in the anime. I'll maybe revisit with Gregory and we'll go through it again together, because I think he's trying to finish off the series as well. It was fun. It was interesting. But anyway, once that talk finished, I was in the throes of trying to get this thing printed off. It got jammed in the printer, so I had to sort that out. I've quickly just slapped it up there with some command strips. Hopefully it doesn't just fall off because they're very thin command strips. But I just needed to frame this nicely. I'm experimenting. This isn't the final thing. I've got my print up here gifted to me by Elizabeth Joyce, who is an amazing artist, and she's working on the coloured version of this right now, which I'll get up on the wall when that's finished. But for now, I've got the print she sent me here. I've got my book, and I've got my logo and YouTube channel artwork there as well. So I think it's coming together nicely. I'm quite happy with the way the office is going. I hope you guys like it too. But we're gonna have an interesting talk today, guys. I think we should talk about the Millennial Kingdom a little bit more. It's not something I've been talking about on my channel as much lately. I've been focusing on the book stuff, obviously because I published a book recently, and I've been doing a lot of interviews. People have been inviting me onto their podcast. And I've just been all over the place dealing with that more than anything. So a lot of the content you've been seeing are me re-uploading those talks I did with people for you to listen to as well. Some exciting news as well. Let me just get Spotify up here. If you don't know, I'm going to start releasing all of these long form content, all these talks I'm doing with you in audio format only. So here it is. If I get up, screen share with you guys, I think you can see it. Here it is. The Truth of Therapy Sessions is now available wherever you get your podcasts from, except for Apple. For some reason, iTunes is being a nightmare and will just not let me get it. Oh, there you go. Good news. 1,800 book sales I've just hit, guys, since publishing in July. So it's been amazing. Thank you for all the support, guys. I really appreciate it. The sales are strong. That's incredible numbers for 3 months of self-publishing. So thank you so much for everybody who's bought a copy of the book. You have no idea what this means for me and my family, and to see that the work is reaching people and it's interesting and captivating and people actually care. But back to the point here, the Truth of Therapy Sessions is now available in podcast format, but there's more, okay? So it's not just the Truth of Therapy Sessions that's on here. Now, I have backdated, as you can see. I need to change the order on this, but there's more than what you see here. This will update soon, but if I go to... Here we go. So if you start from the beginning, it's... Okay, the order's not right on here. Whatever. But I have uploaded a lot of episodes on here. Maybe I need to sort the ordering out in the episodes. It looks like it's gone in the wrong order here on there. But as you can see, from the most recent one with John the Bon on 70, all the way back to... I've gone further than that, I can tell you right now. Yeah, here we go. We're going all the way back to 38. And I'm going to keep going all the way back, and I'm going to get them all the way back to episode 1. But also, all the live Q&As are on here as well. I've uploaded all of them. All 34 Q&As are available on there so far, including this one. Once I finished it, I'll get it in audio format, and I'll upload it to this as well. Now, this isn't what I normally actually see it on. The order on here is all out of whack on Spotify for some reason, but I have them in the proper order on RSS. So this is how it works for people who don't know how podcasting works. You get an RSS feed, you get an account with them, and you basically upload all your podcasts to the RSS feed, and then they send it out through distribution to all of these guys here. Now, like I said, I can't get it on Apple for some reason. It's been an absolute nightmare, but it is on Deezer, and I'm not available in these countries for these ones. But I'm going to figure out the Apple podcast as soon as it figures out the glitch. It's not recognizing my email. It's becoming an absolute nightmare of a process. But yeah, it is available everywhere else, including Amazon Music as well. But this is how it works for me, guys. I've got them all uploaded here. Episode 70 all the way down to 38 has been uploaded. And I've called Season 2, episode whatever. These are the Truth of Therapy sessions. They all come under Season 2. As you can see here, Season 2, Episode 70, Season 2, Episode 69. And you'll see I've done this because Season 1 will be the Q&As. So that's how I've separated the categories. So if you listen to Season 1, all 34 episodes there so far. So this will be Season 1, Episode 35, once uploaded. That's how I'm going to do it. So just yeah, if you're interested, because I know people requested, they want to just listen to it rather than actually watch the video. This is it, guys. I've done it for you, so you can just listen to the audio without having to faff around with YouTube and the adverts and all that type of stuff and skipping adverts. It's all there in audio format on wherever you get your podcast from. Season 1 is updated with live Q&A, and Season 2 is updated with the Truth of Therapy sessions. So it's all there. I'm working on it. I've still got to get the rest of the back catalogue up of the Truth of Therapy sessions, but all the latest episodes are there. So yeah, exciting stuff, guys. I do want to quickly come back here. Let's get the webcam back up. I do want to do a book reading with you guys today as well. I've been writing the second installment of The Nephilim Look Like Clowns, and I've been looking into the Inuit culture, starting at the very top, working my way down of all continents. And I shared it in the Telegram group, but yeah, the Inuits are not okay. They are not doing well. Or they weren't doing well, shall I say. Some of the artwork those guys have created is absolutely terrifying. We're going to look at some of it today. I'm going to talk about some of it today, and I'm going to share with you what I've written so far for the opening chapters of the book. There's plenty of chapters I've written which are further on in the book, but I've been talking about clown serial killers, but I've not finished those yet, and I don't really want to share them until I've got something more substantial and summarized and to make a video out of them. I'm thinking I might make a video out of some of the chapters out of what I'm talking about right now soon in the future, but right now I'm just trying to focus on the writing process. It's a bit of a long one. So what's going on here? I smell an iTunes conspiracy, says Wendy. Something like that. I went through the whole process, right? I got to the end, and it said, you need to confirm your account with this email address. And where it said this email, it was just blank. And there's nothing I can do. It doesn't recognize that I have an email address. I gave them my email address. It's all there for them to pull from and send me the confirmation, but they will not let me confirm my account and have all of my podcasts sent to them. So I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I'm going to have to call support or something and figure out what's going on. But yeah, they're being fussy about it. They're being a nightmare. But I'll get there. I'll get them in the end. How exciting about your book. It truly was way more than I expected. You went through a deep dive and presented the incredible information from the scriptural standpoint so well. Great job. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Tracy. I really appreciate that. Like I said, I'm working on the second one. It's going to be a continuation, more of the same, but going deeper into the ancestor spirit worship cultures, which I'm going to share with you guys in a little bit today. And then maybe I'll do the reading first, and then maybe we can talk about the Millennial Kingdom afterwards and have a bit of a rant and get your questions ready, and we can talk about some things. SP says, there's no way people on horses and buggies built those old world buildings. They were clearly made by saints in glorified bodies who reigned during the 1,000-year reign. I know it's hard to believe, but it makes so much sense when you connect everything together. Yeah, that's pretty much the common consensus among most of us here. Maybe it wasn't built by resurrected saints in their enlightened bodies or something. Maybe it was, I don't know. People say the angels built them as well. Or maybe it was literally people unencumbered by Satan because he was locked away for 1,000 years and utterly inspired, and just had the time and the care and the love and the inspiration in their minds, bodies, and hearts to go ahead and create something incredibly beautiful with the abilities, skills, and times given to them, with longer lives, able to learn more and just give it the time. I think we shouldn't underestimate what humans can do too, given the time. We're pretty amazing creators made in the image of God ourselves when given the abilities and the resources. And in a millennial reign of Christ, we probably had everything we needed. So who knows? But yeah, maybe it was saints as well. Who knows? I'm not at all discounting that as a possibility. Did you see the cover of Vogue with Lady Gaga? She's wearing clown makeup. No, but she has recently been Harlequin, hasn't she, in the second installment of the Joker movie, which is a standard, as you can understand. It's nice to see more people coming to the faith. Yep. We're talking about hello from Indiana. Sorry, I'm trying to go back in the chat, see if I've missed anything, guys. I think I'm catching up now. Donna, great to see you. We've got Ed here. We've got We Ain't Buying It. We've got Amelia. We've got a lot of familiar faces. Great to see you guys as always. We've got Wendy, of course. It wouldn't be a show without Wendy, would it? We've got Franz, Darcy. We got Joe. We've got Prometheus. I like that one. They're on full throttle to make evil cute. Interesting take. The sculptures are definitely supernatural. No tampering with iTunes community. They all nice and comfy on the download. Okay, I don't know, Von, what that means exactly, but all I know is they're not letting me get my stuff on there right now. But I'll get through to them. I know I will. You have helped me so much, Paul. I'm not alone in thought, says Adrian. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear my ramblings help you in some small way. That's always good to hear. Right, guys. Yeah, so I'll just get into it. I'll do a bit of book reading with you guys, shall I? I'll get it up on the screen as I'm reading it. It is probably going to be a mess. I haven't proofread this fully yet, to be honest, so forgive me. Bear with me if it's not perfect. There might be some points we'll have to stop and go, oop, I'll just put a comma there. I'll just rephrase that. The writing really is a process. Everything is not finished straight away, and there's probably things that may not even make it into the book that you're about to read. This is all rough first draft stuff. Okay, this is what if people have been with me long enough, they know what's about to come. Okay, I've done this plenty of times before. I've read many book readings while writing the last book, and yeah, some of it's a mess. Okay, some of it is an absolute mess. But I think I'll just read. What shall I do? Shall I read I won't read the introduction because there's no point. Because the introduction might not even be in one of the versions, but it's hard to explain. I'll explain another time. Let me get this up quickly. Let me just share this. Share screen. Here it is on the screen for you guys to see. I'll zoom in a little bit so you're just seeing the words in big. There we go. As you see on the side here, all the chapters are laid out, and I'm working my way down through them. And this one is what we'd say, Chapter 20, North American Folk Traditions. These chapters may get renumbered in the second volume edition to Chapter 1, 2, 3, but this is a continuation of the original 19-chapter book that you guys have bought through the Nephilim Look Like Clowns Volume 1. Like I said, I have split the book into two because it's just a really long book. It's turning into a huge tome, as I expected. So anyway, I'm going to read this to you guys. And then we'll have a discussion about it. Let me know what you think. I'm just going to have a drink of water quickly here before I start. Okay. Chapter 20, North American Folk Traditions. Sacred Clowning Summarized. In Chapter 18 of Volume 1, The History, I gave a taster of the cultures that can be explored in the North American continent by thoroughly exploring the sacred clown societies of the American plains. To reiterate and summarize what was explained, here are a few abridged quotes. Quote, the Heyoka clown of the Lakota peoples of the Great Northern Territories performed the same social glue role for the tribes as the Pueblo clowns of the Hopi and surrounding tribes of the southwest regions of America. While both Heyoka and Pueblo clowns paint themselves in the same exact black and white striped pattern, the Heyoka attribute the entity they embody to be a specific type of thunder god called the Wakinyan. The Lakota fear the rains and storms that the Wakinyan spirit brings, and dress this way to ward them off, while the Hopi appear to perform these rites, while dressed in the same costume, to bring rain and a good harvest instead. The desired practical outcome for dressing in this particular costume and performing the dances differs between the two tribes. However, they both use the costume to channel spirits. And the similar design tells us that these tribes have a shared experience with something from the past that was stripy. How this powerful being looked has echoed into the styles of the present day ritual costumes and was passed down through oral tradition. The Pueblo clowns and the Heyoka clowns have the same distinctive black and white lined features, emphasized facial features such as wide eyes or mouths, and antennae of varying lengths like that of a jester hat. These features could easily be equated to the patterns of a black and white corn snake or any monochromatic reptile, wide eyes and mouths included. The antennae are reminiscent of horns, which are not uncommon for a dragon, and are a possible feature of the dragon-human hybrids. This floppy horn motif is even adapted by European jesters, especially those involved in the Italian carnival, but they would say it simply represents a king's crown. If we observe the koshari kachina of the Pueblo clowns in particular, we will also find the performers wearing large red shoes, with mouths stained with watermelon juice. The performers' red-stained teeth and chins, mixed with black and white chalk paint, create a similar look to the wide red smile of a modern clown, and that of a gorging cannibal. The red watermelon flesh mimics that of muscle and viscera uncannily, while large red shoes only accentuate the size of the beast's feet they are channeling. These styles of shoes, oversized and colourful, are standard for the circus clown of the West. And perhaps the Pueblo clowns inspired their inclusion in the occult caricature of today. It can be confirmed that the Heyoka represents the thunder god known as a Wakinyan, a black and white, polka-dot, wide-eyed, eagle-clawed, horned beast who brings destruction in its wake. We can also infer that the sacred clowns of an identical design in the surrounding tribes of the American continent also find their roots in the same creature due to the aesthetic similarities. End quote. The distinct look of these costumes of ritual clowning will be a recurring theme throughout this exploration of worldwide cultures that channel the spirits. Black and white fractal lines or patterns are a staple motif that cannot be ignored when looking at the similarities in aesthetics across differing animistic and ancestor spirit societies in separate countries. Okay, well that needs a comma somewhere, doesn't it? Pause. The black and white fractal lines or patterns are a staple motif, comma, that cannot be ignored when looking at the similarities in aesthetics across differing animistic and ancestor spirit societies, comma, in separate countries. I'm just going to do that for now. I'll have to revisit that. Okay, carrying on. A black and white striped polka dot or zigzag costume is typical of modern demonic clowns too. For example, Art the Clown of the modern slasher house movie The Terrifier, or the pinstripe suit of Beetlejuice, the human exorcist spectre. To avoid repeating myself and dwelling too much on the sacred clown tradition of America, we should also examine the numerous other traditions surrounding these American clown societies, performed by native tribes further north and south of the plains. By doing so, we can see that the North American continent is replete with encounters with clown-like Nephilim. We will begin from the north and work our way south. Heading: The Inuit Masks of Canada and Alaska. Inuit religion is the shared spiritual belief and practices of the Inuit, an indigenous people from Alaska, northern Canada, Siberia, and Greenland. Their religion shares many similarities with some Alaska native religions. Formerly named Eskimos, this label is now considered a slur in today's politically correct and ever-changing cultural landscape in Canada and Greenland, though native Alaskans still refer to themselves as Eskimos, due to the word Inuit not being part of the Yukip languages of Alaska and Siberia. Traditional Inuit religious practices include animism and shamanism, in which spiritual healers mediate with spirits to heal the tribe, gain power or knowledge, and plead with the sea goddess for better hunting gains. Today, many Inuit follow Christianity. 71% of Canadian Inuit identify as Christian as of 2021. However, traditional Inuit spirituality continues as a part of a living oral tradition and part of a contemporary Inuit society. The Inuit call a shaman an angakuk, though each tribe attributes their local medicine man to varying roles and rituals that don't always align with one another. Those further away from water, for example, do not have a primary focus on communicating with the great sea goddess Sedna, begging her to release the animals from the ocean so the hunters can have food and avoid famine. Instead, they play a more hands-on role in the community as intermediaries for family conflict, which is believed to be caused by spirits. We will explain the nature of these spirits soon, but first let's examine this sea goddess mentioned earlier. The mythos surrounding Sedna is a very telling tale that has strong echoes in its narrative linking back to the Book of Enoch and the taking of wives by the Watcher-class angels. The stories of Sedna's creation have minor detail changes across the land, but the common theme is that a great bird spirit who can shapeshift marries a man's daughter under the pretext that he is a mighty hunter, but once she discovers that he is only a bird who hunts fish, or alternatively, not a man, but a monster, she realizes she is trapped in a deceitful marriage. The father, along with his friends, take the daughter in an attempt to free her from her newfound bondage after discovering the truth about her new husband. Furious, the winged beast attacks the escaping crew, who are found in a canoe in the middle of the ocean, by flapping his wings to cause a mighty storm. The daughter is flung overboard, and out of fear of the boat tipping over, the father cuts his daughter's fingers. After falling into the ocean, she becomes a primordial sea goddess who commands the animals of the sea with a vengeful spirit towards man. I find it fascinating that this story is a perfect example of a winged animal hybrid gods who command the weather taking human wives. The Thunderbird mythos is a common theme all throughout the American continent, and I believe these are a perfect example of angels who have dominion over elements, leaving their allotted estates to mingle with the daughters of man. What is even more telling is that this is another retelling of the Enochian account of the woman who mated with the bird god. Sorry, let me rephrase that. I told you guys, this isn't perfect. Okay, so let me try and rephrase that. What is even more telling that this is another retelling. Okay, what is even more? This is another recounting? Another recounting of the Enochian tale. Let's say a tale of the Enochian tale. Is that the woman who mated with the bird god became a fish woman mermaid siren. Comparing this Inuit myth to the following passage from the Book of Enoch, it's easy to see the glaring similarities. Quote, "And Uriel said to me, here shall stand the angels who've connected themselves with women, and their spirits, assuming many different forms, are defiling mankind, and shall lead them astray into sacrificing to demons as gods. Here shall they stand till the day of the great judgment, in which shall be judged till they are made an end of. And the women also of the angels who went astray shall become sirens." This series you are reading aims to establish that no matter where the culture, their individual traditions, or given names for certain encounters, the biblical account of Nephilim creation and their dominion, and their domination, is a constant. This account of the human, Sedna, who became a siren after marriage with a flying nature god, certainly helps further this endeavour. If we come back to looking into Inuit shamanism, we find that the medium must go through a vigorous training regiment from other shamans, which culminates in them learning a new secret language and gaining a spirit guide called a Turngak. Some Turngate, plural, are evil, monstrous, and responsible for bad hunts and broken tools. They can possess humans and a shaman with harmful intentions, and can also use Turngate for their own personal gain, or to attack other people. So, let me rephrase that. They can possess humans, and a shaman with harmful intentions can use a Turngate for their own personal gain, or to attack other people. While a shaman with good intentions can use them to heal sickness, and find animals to hunt and feed the community. Though once a Turngak simply meant killing spirit, it has, with Christianization, taken on the meaning of a demon. I believe this to be the Nephilim spirits in which the shaman has become a willing vessel for, and the dichotomy of good versus bad spirits is a performance by the Nephilim to maintain a steady supply of sacrifices and vessels to channel through. These creatures' origins are expanded on in later paragraphs, but we must first better understand the relationship with a Turngak and the shaman. This is a transactional process, and in return for allowing a spirit within them, the Inuit shamans would at times gain extraordinary powers from their Turngak. Stories tell of shamans who would run as fast as caribou or could fly with the assistance of their possessing spirits. In some traditions, the shaman would be stabbed or shot, receiving no wound because of the intervention of their Turngak, thus proving their power. This is identical to the cut ritual performed by the shamans of South Korea, who similarly cut and stab themselves without harm to prove that possession has took place to their paying clients who wish to speak with the spirits. The main method to channel spirits in Inuit ritual is through the use of masks. Masks of the Inuits, who endure the coldest climates with limited resources, appear to have an almost nightmarish and surreal visage compared to the more colourful colourfully painted and elaborately adorned masks of the more southern tribes. They often have large, slit-like grins with numerous spaced-out teeth, red sap-tinted lips, and deadpan piercing eye dots, nestled within a moon-shaped face of pale wood, surrounded with carvings of small limbs or dangling wooden trinkets. The white-faced, wide grinning motif of the Nephilim translates through these masks with a dark horror that only those who live in a brutal existence of scarcity could conjure. The Inuits fear the spirits, not worship them, and they rely on the shaman to dress this way in a hope to plead for less pain, famine, and harsh weather. Of course, the Inuits themselves consider spirits of all kinds of humans and animals to be within all things, including objects, and even within every joint of the body. They don't consider the thunder entities they represent on these masks to be the Nephilim in a literal sense, but rather reflections of elements of creation and environment. Dr. Lauren G. Kilroy Eubank, an art historian and seasoned university professor of classical and indigenous art, had this to say regarding the ritual masks of the Inuit in an essay for the Educational Foundation, Khan Academy. Quote, "Making masks and participating in performances help to forge social bonds and to engage with beings in the spirit world. These beings were not only people, but also animals and elements of the environment, and sometimes even hybrids. Spirits could be embodied by living creatures as well as objects like hunting tools. So it was crucial to respect the environment in which one lived. During ceremonies, masks transformed the individual wearing it into the spirit made manifest in the material world. This element of transformation is evident in the appearance of many masks that combine animals and human elements with others that relate to the environment. Men typically wore these masks during ceremonies, while women might use finger masks to animate their hands. Ritual specialists casually directed dances and selected which males would be masked participants. Beyond wearing the masks, hand drums were often used during the dances. Ceremonial clothing further animated dances and worked with the masks to transform an individual into a channel for a spirit. Think of these ceremonies as a form of storytelling, with the music and mass dancing as the primary means of conveying a narrative and making contact with the spirits that aided people living in a challenging natural environment." End quote. I contest that these hybrids she speaks of are likely the spirits of those who took part in the mixing of kinds mentioned in the Book of Jasher, in which mankind merged themselves with animals, creating chimeric monsters of all kinds to survive a brutal pre-flood environment. Quote, "And the judges and rulers went to the daughters of men and took their wives by force from their husbands according to their choice. And the sons of men in those days took from the cattle of the earth, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the air, and taught the mixture of animals of one species with another, in order wherein to provoke the Lord. And God saw the whole earth, and it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted its ways upon the earth, all men and all animals. And the Lord said, I will blot out man that I created from the face of the earth, yea, from man to the birds of the air, together with cattle and beasts that are in the field, for I repent that I have made them." It is suitable to share this passage now, as to limit the need to share it again in later chapters of the book, as I will be referring back to this passage often. As I examine the masks worn during Inuit rituals, Nephilim and hybrid features seem glaringly apparent in the light of my own research. However, you must always remember that no modern academic anthropologist will even consider such an interpretation. One famous photograph dated to the 1890s shows a Yupik shaman exorcising evil spirits from a sick boy in Nushagak, Alaska. Frank Carpenter, the photographer, wrote upon the image the ominous phrase, "working to beat the devil," as it shows a shaman dressed in a terrifying mask of a psychedelic monster with a large mouth, pointed nose, sharp teeth, and a polka dot patterned elongated forehead. The shaman is also sporting what appears to be novelty-sized fake hands covered in white polka dots, with his arms wrapped around a confused-looking child. Another photo from the same region and time, labelled as Russian Idol, Alaska, shows the same costume being worn by a shaman with a different mask, depicting a clownish white face with a goofy smile. Much of the mythology surrounding the Inuits and their monsters often involve giants or human-like creatures with terrifying, deadly, often unusual forms and habits. For example, the Mahaha have very clown-like mannerisms and aesthetics, including a wide grimace and haunting giggle. They are described as such by the Inuit Art Foundation. Quote, "If you hear a haunting giggle carried by the Arctic wind, it may mean that the terrifying Mahaha is near. The menacing smirk, horrific teeth, and immense razor-sharp talons, this being wears a twisted smile while it stalks lone travellers during the winter months, impervious to the cold." Also known as the Kunga Lukak. I'm going to butcher this one, sorry guys. Kunga Lukakit. Yeah. Lukakit. Kungalukakit. Let's say that, okay. Also known as the Kungalukakit, the relatively small creature is routinely depicted wearing little clothing and almost always barefoot, with icy blue eyes that peer out from beneath a long, tangled mane. Perhaps the most notable are its elongated fingers and similarly prolonged nails that it uses to tickle victims to death, while grinning from ear to ear. But if being tickled to death by a giggling clown isn't horrifying enough, odd encounters with giants is a very common motif throughout Inuit culture. In Chapter 9, Volume 1, I discussed at length the Tuniit giants and their parents. Quote, "The Inupasaguk are northern giants, a race of colossal frost giants who spent most of their lives on the eternal ice sheet of the polar region. They come from the south each winter to visit with the little folk when the ice is thick enough to support their enormous weight. It was unions between humans and the Inupasaguk which produced the first of the Tuniit, also known as the Dorset culture, from whom the region of Tuniitaq takes its name." Kate Allen, a reporter from the Toronto Star, wrote this on the Tuniit while reviewing the results of a scientific test on the genealogy of the Inuits. In Inuit oral history, the Tuniit loomed both large and small. They inhabited the Arctic before the Inuit came, and they were a different stock of people, taller and stronger, with the muscularity of polar bears, the stories say. A Tuniit man could lift a 1,000-pound seal on his back, or drag a whole walrus. Others say the Tuniit slept with their legs in the air to drain the blood from their feet and to make them lighter, so they could outrun a caribou. But despite their superior strength and size, the Tuniit was shy. They were easily put to flight, and it was seldom heard of that they killed others. According to one storyteller in the book, Ukaldurate, an oral history of the Nunavut, the Inuit took over the best hunting camps and displaced the conflict-averse Tuniit. Soon enough, these strange people disappeared from the land. End quote. I speculate these cowardly Tuniit were fleeing the God-given edict to have all the Nephilim wiped from the face of the earth, given to the people of Israel. And after their fathers escaped the lands of Canaan, they went into hiding in the icy north and became conflict-averse out of fear of losing. The Tuniit, or Dorset culture, who appear to have disappeared from existence after being killed by the Inuits, likely became the disembodied spirits we call demons today, as is the fate of all Nephilim in death, and remain with the Inuits as the Turngates mentioned earlier, which are the ones being depicted on the clownish masks worn by the shamans who communicate with them in the spirit realm. The Turngate are shapeshifters of sorts, and can take on multiple forms. Some are only visible to the shaman who summoned them, and are not always obviously demonic. Just like the jesters who communicate with the Western psychedelic trippers, some Tuniit appear harmless, a tactic that helps lure people back to their homes/realms. Much of the modern indigenous artwork and masks depicting the visages of these possessing spirits is comparable to the artwork produced by those online trying to relay their DMT experience with the jester archetypes. This will be a common theme throughout this body of work, as the aesthetic similarities of spirits compound with each new folk tradition that's examined. And then it's the next chapter, which I've not written yet. So there you go, guys. What do you think of that? Let me know if you enjoyed that little reading. I think I did quite well there. While I've got the webcam back on, I'm just going to quickly try and find some pictures for you guys of the Inuit masks, just so you know what I'm talking about. Inuit masks. Let's just share some of these with you so you can get an idea of what I was just discussing. So these are some of the masks of the Tuniits and things like this, but I'm going to get the specific ones up. Let me just find... Here's a great list of stock photos of Inuit masks. So this is the 1890s photograph of the shaman healing the little boy with his large novelty gloves, as you can see. Absolutely terrifying. If I just quickly zoom in there, you can maybe get a better view. I think I'm still zoomed in on here, aren't I? Okay, so let me quickly minimize this so you get a better view. I think no, that's not the whole picture. Something like that. There we go. That'll do for now. So yeah, this is the child who's absolutely terrified. And it says here, working to beat the devil down the side here. Eskimo medicine man, Alaska, exorcising evil spirit from young boy. Giant novelty glove hands with polka dots. A huge elongated forehead here with polka dots all over it. And this big, wide, grinning, toothy mouth that goes all the way out the sides of his cheeks. Really weird stuff. Like, really trippy. Feathered headdress, all type of thing. So, very, very terrifying monsters that they're depicting here. And we've got some other examples. Look at this wide, grinning, creepy creature. Keep going here. You can see the face within that. These are the finger puppets that will also be worn. And let's keep going. We've got, look at this monstrous talisman that's also been created. Absolutely terrifying stuff. This is used by the shaman to exorcise evil spirits from the body. This is how they believe the inner spiritual workings of the body are, and how spirits interact with each section and how they need to be cast out of people in order to heal them of sickness. So as you can see, what an absolutely terrifying depiction of spiritual concepts here. The spheres of the body as it's described. We've got, keep going. Wide grinning. This is very much like your Gorgon of Greek mythology. Very similar looking beast. This is a lot like the Rakshasas of India, just the northern ice regions version of the same thing. This one over here is looking like a mix between Groot and Thanos from the Marvel universe, with his lined chin there at the bottom and the wooden hair. And also kind of a mix of like the mask as well. But this is a face of a deceased shaman to prevent the spirit returning to reanimate the corpse prior to burials. This is a death mask. This is what they would put on the mask of a dead shaman so the spirits couldn't affect it, basically. Very odd. Some of the other terrifying masks from this culture. I mean, it's honestly, it gets weird. You got these twisted things here. There's a human with a possessing spirit. Very reptilian, very wide grinned, very strange. What else have we got? This wide grinning fish monster thing here. This is what's worn by that shaman who was exorcising the monster from the kid. Polka dots, red features, feathers, pale white skin, wide grin with sharp teeth. It's all the features of the Nephilim in one mask here. The feathers obviously reminiscent of the angelic nature, half angelic nature Yeah, honestly, Inuit masks can get pretty strange, and this is nothing. I'm just scratching the surface here. Let me keep looking. Let's just get the images up. Yeah, so we've got these ones as well. Very creepy. These ones. This one's got like real teeth embedded into it. You've got this thing here. Look at this. Absolutely mortifying. What a very, very, very terrifying. So this is obviously representing the turn gates, the demons, the disembodied spirits that they're trying to channel. Here's another example. Big wide grin. Look at this twisted psychedelic face on this one here. Seems to be a common motif that they would do that. They say this represents the sun and the moon and the cosmic circles, but when you look at it, it looks like a spirit trapped in the DMT realm to me. Looking pretty upset about it. Here, another one. Wide, red-lipped, wide-grinned, monstrous, slight red nose. Look at this grinning beast coming through here in this fishing mask. With a big, wide, toothy grin. Pale white skin. Yeah, they're all saying we're channeling the spirits of the turn gates, the demons, you know, the monsters, the spirit entities that we need to appease to make us happy, the things the shamans channel to gain strength and abilities from, likely the disembodied spirits of the local Tuniit giants, which are no longer around. Psychedelic stuff, guys. I don't think looking at these, I really don't think the Inuits are okay. I'm worried about them. I'm really worried about them. They have the creepiest, wildest masks. I'm not going to lie. Absolutely terrifying stuff. And the further south you go into the American plains, the more like this they start to look like. A lot more colourful, a lot more vibrant. It seems like the Inuits have like a more of a cosmic horror thing going on, like a VHS cosmic horror style. Analog horror style. I don't know how to explain it in comparison. It's pretty trippy, but yeah, you better believe it. They look like clowns. So there you go, guys. There's the Inuit flavor of Nephilim channeling masks and costumes, and there's my opening few pages on that particular sect. I'm going to go over to the look at this one here. Hang on, this wide grin and this beastie grin. Look at that. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Definitely the clown-like Nephilim they're representing there, 100%. Even if they know it or not, that's what's going on. We know it. My work's trying to prove it. But next we're going to go over to the Haida Gwaii regions off the plains of, just off the coast of Alaska. We're going to look at the totem poles there, if you don't know about that already. The Haida... let's look at the masks. The masks are equally as Nephilim clownish when you actually get into it. These are worn for similar reasons as I just talked about there, but they have a varied cultural belief surrounding these masks that differs slightly from the Inuit. But they also have their totem poles, which always bear white skin, red lip features as well. It gets pretty trippy. They're like human-animal hybrid looks to them. We're talking about the Nephilim clowns again, all kind of linked in with this, but also they'll tell you they represent animals specifically in humans. But I'm not always 100% certain that the original meanings did carry on, and it's kind of an echo of an ancient past or a visage of something particular that kind of comes through these. Like I said, they'll say, oh, well, this represents like a, I don't know, a beaver or something. It's like, doesn't look like a beaver to me. I think this is more something else. But at the same time, these are quite modern creations. The old ones have sort of rotted away. They don't really have... All the old totem poles are colourless. And like this, like completely decayed. So you get modern recreations, which may be a little bit removed from the original sources.
Okay, I've found this on the web, but at the same time, these are quite modern creations. The old ones that have sort of rotted away, and they don't really have all the old tone poles are colourless and like this, like completely decayed. Check it out.
Sorry, guys. I think Siri got involved. I'm sorry about that. if that was loud and brash and horrible and annoying, I have my headphones in, and I think it Siri started speaking to us there. I do apologize. Don't know how long that was going on for. Hopefully not too long, to the point where it got really annoying. But yeah, that shouldn't happen again. So there we go, guys. What do you think? What do you think of the reading so far? Are we happy with that? Is it good? Am I doing well? Hopefully that book should be ready next year to publish volume 2, and I can get out the complete set 1 and 2 to everyone who pre-ordered next year. But it's a work in progress. You know, I'm getting there slowly. The spirits inhabiting the earth are not of the spirits of God and are not of the spirits of men. They are only of the earth. Henceforth, the earth will be their only dwelling. That's right. They are trapped on earth. Turngate. Check out Penumbra Overture. Yes, there's a video game where the main antagonist is the Turngates. Yes, and it's basically like a pale-skinned, bloodied monster with a baseball bat or a crowbar or something, isn't it? I know, I've seen that. Yeah. Well, I'm talking about I'm not bothered about video games. I'm talking about the original source material here. So many people in the Northwest decorated their homes with native art, masks, etc. Yeah, no, it's really popular art style. In some cases, it's quite a beautiful art style. But the Inuits, they just went twisted and dark. They went like a Silent Hill horror style dark with their representations. They're just something else. And you know, living in a horrible, cold, harsh climate might do that to you. Who knows? But it gets trippy. Hollywood of hacks. I can totally see where Tim Burton got the inspiration for his monsters. Yeah, I know, it's all stolen, isn't it? That's right. Thanks, Wendy, for giving out giving that out to people there, the memberships. I appreciate it. Let me just check the chat here. Let's see if I can catch up. 226 people here. That's pretty cool. Thanks for joining me, guys. Thanks. I hope you enjoyed the little book reading. I don't think I can go for too long tonight, guys. It's quite late for me. It's already midnight. And I do have to sleep, you know. I've got to rest. Lots to do over the next few days. It's my son's birthday on the 2nd. We've got a lot of things we need to prepare and prep for his presents and things like that. And his cake. We've got to make a cake. We bought loads of stuff today to make it, and so yeah, I do need to get my rest. So I might go for a little bit longer, maybe 10 more minutes, 15 more minutes. If you guys have any questions or anything you want me to talk about, maybe the little season or something like that, any particular part of that you would like me to maybe dwell into, let me know, guys, and I'll go off on one like I always do. Let me just check down here. Have we got JT in the house? I saw someone reference him there. Is he here? I can't see if he is or not. But hi, Joe, if you're here. Thanks for joining. Disturbing too. The AI demon is not friendly. No, certainly not. Are you going to touch on the little season? Yeah, like I said, I can talk about that. I mean, I was just actually talking with Madeline from Leaving Babylon channel. Yeah, she was talking with someone who's a regular on the Telegram group, Jana. I think that's her name. I might be butchering that, I don't know, Jana, but yes, yeah, they had a great conversation, and they were going quite deep into a lot of things on there, and a lot of great points were really hit, to be honest. So I've reached out to Madeline, and she's going to come on the channel and share her perspective and understandings on quite a lot of things to do with the little season, to be honest. So that should be good fun. I know a lot of people out there follow her as well, so that's interesting. Paul Stubbs, you are the story meist. Thank you. Yeah, there's Joe. He says I'm here. Excellent. Thanks for being here, Joe. I appreciate it. Joe, are you free? Do you want to hop on and talk about the little season for a little bit? Shall we do it live? If you're game and available, I'm happy to. Let's hop on and have a bit of a quick chat for maybe 10-15 minutes for the guys. I'm sure they can appreciate that. Let me know if you're interested in that, Joe, and I'll send you the link on Instagram or something. But yeah, like I said, I need to reach out to more people in the Millennial Kingdom game and get them to come on and start talking with me more about it. Because the thing is about Millennial Kingdom, I feel like I've said a lot about it. I have a lot of work, a body of a content available where people can go and find everything I've kind of ever said and thought about it. And I think actually I'm going to release something on Friday where we've just discussed it at length, again with Glink and Gregory from there. So there is more content coming out in the Millennial Kingdom. But I feel like there's probably more to be said, but I need to go out there and find the people who are saying these things already. So I'm not kind of just repeating what other people have done. I want them to come on and share their findings with me instead. But I am what I will say. I am starting to notice the kickback a little bit more. I think a lot more people are realizing that there is a subgroup of Christians out there talking about this topic now, and they are kind of freaking out a little bit. I am noticing that. Joe says he can do 15 minutes. That's perfect. That's all I've got anyway, Joe. So I'll send you a Zoom link, shall I? Give me a minute. Let's start a new meeting. And join with computer audio, and I'm going to send you a Zoom link now, Joe, and you can hop on and let's have a quick Millennial Kingdom chat. Surprise guest. Who knew, eh? Who saw that coming? I'm sure we've got lots of fun things to talk about. He's been sharing lots of things in the group chat with me, which is quite fun recently. So yeah, Joe, I'll send that to you on Instagram now. I'll just put it in the Bible study. If Vitaly sees it, maybe he can randomly click the link and jump into it. Who knows? I've sent you the link there on Bible study if you want to click that and come through, and I'll admit you into the chat. But yeah, let's talk about the Millennial Kingdom. Like I said, we've been showing some fun stuff, some stuff about Mayan temples being discovered non-stop as well recently, and there's a lot of false history stuff occurring, which is quite funny. So let's just wait for Joe to hop on there. Should be fun. I just got a $10 super chat from Kyle. I saw a YouTuber researching the true name of God found evidence that one of the Roman emperors banned speaking God's name. Then the sages started a conspiracy to hide the name from Gentiles. Yeah, I've heard this. I've heard the idea before that you've got to use the true name of God, which is Yahuwah, and Yahushua. Yahawashi. I've heard many names actually from a lot of different people. I think if you want to use the Greek transliteration of Joshua to Jesus and so forth, then that's fine. I mean, technically the English of Yeshua is Joshua, so you can call Jesus Josh if you wanted to as well. I think God knows our hearts and who we're referring to when I say Jesus, though, so I don't think it's that bad. And when I say God, I think we know who we mean, and who God knows who we mean from the English language. But yeah, Yahuwah and Yeshua are the names of God, absolutely. Or you can say Yahweh as well, the Canaanite version and transliteration of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, I believe it is. Is that right? YHVH or something like that, and you can say it's Yahuwah. It gets complicated, but Yahuwah, as far as I'm aware, is the name of God, and Yeshua is the name of his son. But I'm not hung up on the sacred name stuff myself personally. But it can be known. The name of God can be known. He says he's here. Perfect. So I'll stop ranting on. Let's let him in. Let me put my headphones in quickly. There we go. Can you hear me?
Hey.
All right, I can hear you loud and clear. Let's see if the guys can hear you. Everyone in the chat, let me know if you can hear him. How are we doing, Joe?
Good, man. Yeah. This was spur of the moment, but I'm game. Around.
Yeah. Because I'm not usually on this late, to be honest. So it's very rare I get a chance to kind of catch you in this moment. Have you got your own show going on today? Have you been uploading your own stuff recently? Haven't you?
I did actually I recorded a podcast with a friend, Derek Olson. He does Megalithic Marvels, or I guess his current name is Stargate Voyager, and he's one of these guys who does like the boots in the ground stuff in all the megalithic sites and stuff like that. So we were reviewing Graham Hancock's show, that Ancient Apocalypse.
Right.
It actually was you had actually. The episode we reviewed, I haven't watched it too much, but he said, hey, watch season 2, episode 5, and it was all about ayahuasca and all that stuff. And I was like, ooh, I was like, this is, I had a lot to say about that, but it was.
I'm sure you did, yeah. I need to join you for your new podcast, actually, don't I? And see what we can watch. I keep sharing with you my Instagram feed.
I don't know. I don't know if I want you to bring your videos. No, but yeah, that actually, it's one of those ideas that I like the whole JT's mixtape thing. I was like, I know it's funny because you got asked like, are you going to talk about the Millennial Kingdom? And I don't hope to not disappoint people by saying like that. I've talked about 70 AD and I've talked about lots of those things so many times recently. I'm sure like, and I'll continue, I'm sure, to be asked to go on people's shows, like probably as you are, and talk about it without finding out something new. Like, I have to, like, we have to either like narrow in on like focus in on some very specific part of it, or like learn something that's brand new. Because otherwise, it's like, yeah, I mean, I believe it's almost like in the same way that we're not like looking for the rapture. So we're not date setters. Always talk about, oh, well, check it out. All this stuff is about to happen. So like if we believe we're in the little season, unless there's something that projects that, like that's obviously our eschatology, right? And that's not who we are. Like eventually that's like that shapes our worldview, but it can't be everything we talk about all the time, I don't think.
Well, it's funny because when I've made my first video on this topic a year ago, it's October, I think October 16th or something, like 2023. It's been a year now. I've been talking since I made that first video titled like, "Who are we if Jesus reigned for 1,000 years?" And it went viral. It's gone like something like 400,000 views now over that year time span, And I would say since that video, I've come a long way. I've gone down many facets of the idea and that concept, and I fleshed it out as much as I could and said, so if this, then what? You know what I mean? And kind of gone with that thought process on everything. So if the Millennial Kingdom this, then therefore we need to re-examine X, Y, and Z, and I've kind of taken them all to the logical conclusions I best can. And you keep hitting this, eventually you hit walls. It's like, okay, I'm in the realm of speculation now. Because there's like limits to what we can actually know based on how history would have been manipulated. But I did think to myself when I made that first video, and my MK Ryan, one of my moderators, can attest to this because I was kind of talking with him about it. It's like, look, man, like I've got to talk about this topic, but I'm worried I'm just going to become nothing about this topic and I'm going to lose focus. I should be focusing right now on the clown stuff because I'm writing the book. But I need to talk about this topic because I can't stop thinking about it. But I don't. But I don't want my channel to just become a nothing but this thing, you know what I mean? And I made the video and I made my first video on it, and then my channel ended up split focus, becoming massively about the Millennial Kingdom stuff. And I'm like, fair enough, it needs to be talked about. That's great.
Sure.
I'm not a one-trick pony. I'm not just the Nephilim clown guy. I'm not just the little season guy. I'm like an everything conspiracy guy, and I think I've managed to not fall into that pigeonhole. I think I've managed to maintain my head above the water a little bit and that ability to dip in and out of all sorts of things, and people enjoy that. But I can't leave the Millennial Kingdom. But I feel like I've kind of like saturated it a little bit. I don't know what else I can talk about.
Yeah. And I guess that's kind of what I'm saying. It's like that I'm very interested in it, and I think in the same way that before I did this, I was interested in if I was like a post-trib rapture guy. If there was anything that related to that, it was in the news, I would obviously talk about it because it's like that's shaped my worldview. And so, but again, I was not just like an end times, that's not all I produced was end times content. It was more than that in the same way. Cause I'm, like I said, you and I are just singular people and we have different interests, and obviously hopefully the Holy Spirit's leading us to the things we talk about. But yeah, like I don't want to say, oh, well, the Millennial Kingdom topic is hot, so I just got to continue to talk about it, even when I'm not actually interested in talking about it. So like I'm not going to do that. Like so, but I do think that like the more I learn and the more I'm able to, expand on it, I will. But I mean, in the same time, like I said, I think that JT's mixtape is just like. It seems like such an obvious idea that I don't know how I didn't think of it sooner. That like this allows me, and I guess of course you guys saw the first 2 episodes. Like I tailored the videos, like so if I have anything that relates to, the mud flood, Tataria, the old world, free energy, those videos will be in there. So like we can constantly say, hey, like so the last episode I brought up, I had underground cities and meltology and all the stuff. And
all the good stuff.
Yeah, the previous episode, I had that weird clip from those movies showing like the World Fair. Like that's where I'm probably gonna put my focus. And because outside of that, it was funny because like I've done so many videos talking about 70 AD, and at some point I know that people are just like, all right, you think Jesus already came back? I get it. And at some point, like I don't want to be like, it's out there now. People are going to, like obviously I can defend it. The more I can defend it, and I've even gotten asked at this point to go on shows to debate people, and I'm not quite ready to do that right now because I'm like, for one, I think once I start doing, I'm probably going to be doing a lot of it. So like I'm not going to do that. But I feel like I can defend it pretty well, but I'm not ready to go like.
It's funny you say that because I was just talking today in the Telegram group. I'm not going to mention names. I'm not looking to get dragged into that kind of mess either, to be honest. But there are channels out there now, let's say, who are now starting to notice, like I said, that there's this odd group of people in the corner of the Christian conspiracy truth movement who are talking about the Millennial Kingdom already coming and Revelation's already happened, and they've defaulted immediately to the programming, and it's kind of like Revelation hasn't happened yet, it's happening now, and the third temple and all this type of attitude, you know what I mean? It's kind of where can you show me in the Bible that Jesus came back, where can you know this type of thing? And it's kind of, there's like a culture growing now where it's getting into the debate me bro realm, and because the more people are discovering it. And the issue is, like, I listen to these videos and I hear their argument. It's kind of like you actually don't have an argument. But you don't know you don't have an argument because you've got this basic pre-trib programming already in you. You know what I mean? You've got the dispensationalist stuff going on, and the Israel supremacy thing, and the magic people of Jerusalem thing going on still. It's kind of they're so in it they can't contextualize what we're talking about. It's kind of like, well, where's Jesus? Why are people not walking around in the divine light bodies, like not knowing about the little season still? It's kind of like, where do you start with something? You can't debate somebody who's in that position.
I think that, it's funny because I even was just on a podcast on Friday, and this guy brought me on and says, I don't believe in the little season. And I said, hey, listen, I don't really want to argue about it if you don't. And I was like, and he's like, oh, no, this thing won't be like that. You can bring it up and we'll talk about it for a second. But it was funny when I asked him, I was like, well, what do you do with what Jesus said and stuff like that? Well, eventually we talked about it, and he was just like, well, I view it as he's talking to future people. And I'm just like, well, why do you think that? And it was kind of funny because it was like automatically was like stumped right away. And I was like, but why would you assume? Like, you have to understand that he's talking to the people he's talking to. So like, and it was almost like, well, I don't know. Which is like I was almost like kind of baffled at some of these people. And I think that it's funny in the videos we have kind of like broke down where they were like truth unedited, when like Vitaly and I broke it down, was like they really do try to just whitewash everything Jesus said, because it's like it really does not fit their case at all. And I think to me it's like I feel like that. Yeah, one day I'm going to debate it. I guess it's like sometimes you just have to like. I don't like things to be contentious, and I feel like and we're in the seed planting business. So like that, if you want to learn more, and obviously if the Holy Spirit's going to help you understand what Jesus is saying better, then obviously God's going to do that work in you. Now it's like, because I think that's the problem. I think with the culture now would be like, well, who won the debate? Like who owned this person? When like nobody's going to change their mind based on somebody getting owned or not, right? They're just going to say, oh, well, this guy just didn't do a good enough job defending his position. They'll go back and they'll find other people to say, well, this person would have debated and they would have won the argument. So ultimately it's going to be God who's going to, the Father's going to draw them to Jesus. They're going to give them, they're going to take the scales off their eyes, but it's not going to be us just like logically pinning them down.
I mean, I'd like to imagine most Christians would be, when it comes to stuff like that, maybe open, loving, caring, accepting, willing to listen. But I've seen there's more of a religious attitude behind debating when it comes to Christianity. It's more of a, you're preaching a heretical doctrine of the devil attitude.
It's hard to have a conversation when that's the that's how they started out. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I guess that's the thing. It's like the people who like the guy who, obviously the other guy who was on the podcast with, he didn't start out like that. So he invited me on the show, and he of course he was like, I wouldn't have had you on the show if I thought you were preaching heresy. And I was like, okay, well, yeah, then we can, like I said, I had people who believed in the pre-trib rapture, and I've never believed in that.
Mm-hmm.
And we could talk, and like, yeah, it's kind of like, yes, faith in Jesus is not about that. So this talk, and I think that I do feel like that there is that aspect that this must be, we're going after their cash cow. I mean, I hate to say it like that, but we're going after something that's besides this, when they have to, push us out on this limb of like, this is a damnable sin to be talking about. Yeah, I always love that you're the one who always brings it up when they're like, teaching falsely is going to be, you're going to be judged greatly if you're teaching false doctrine. And you're like, but you have never once considered that you're the one who's teaching the false thing.
So, I mean, you have to give an account. you do know you'll have to give an account for every word that comes out of your mouth, right? It's like you don't want to be that guy, do you? What if Jesus says to you, I never knew you? Do you really want to be? Do you want to risk it? This kind of, what are you talking about? Like, have you ever, as I said, have you ever considered what you're preaching to be like? Have you questioned it in any way? Like, there are more eschatological worldviews than just the predominant one that everybody preaches in the pulpits of the 501c3s. Like, have you not just thought about that for a second? Have you not considered what a grand deception might look like? Would it not be the thing the majority of people are preaching if it's such a grand deception? But again, it's like you said, there's too much investment. Even if it isn't monetarily invested, it's more like they don't want to lose face. It's like, I've been preaching this, I've been doing this for so long. It's kind of, I can't do a 180 now because I'm the pre-trib rapture guy that's coming. It's like they can't like let that go, and it's like I'd have to redesign my entire persona if you make me believe this thing now, and I've got to like, it's kind of, I feel a lot of people aren't willing to let go of what they've built around that idea, which is why I always came at it from the attitude of, look, I'm not the little season guy. This isn't my be-all end-all of who I am as a person or what this channel is. It's just a one topic within the overall idea of conspiracy theories online, and we have to talk about it. And I ended up in the camp where I think it's right. I think this is it. I think this is probably what's really going on. Like, it's not like something I need to like lose my friends and family and be labeled a heretic for. I don't think, because the Holy Spirit's still here. The commission's still the same. Our job's still the same as Christians. Like, spread the gospels, preach the truth. Help the sick, the elderly, the poor, the widows, the children, whatever. Just do what we need to do. Be the lights in the world. And be the salt of the earth as well at the same time. Nothing really changes, just where you are in the time. But it's this odd attitude, isn't it? It's like, no, this changes everything. Like that means like we're doomed. We're all damned if it's the little season. It's kind of like, where does it say that anywhere? Like, I don't understand. Like, I don't.
The thing I actually will say though that makes it, maybe I'm pushing them out on a limb a little bit, is that the more I'm reading what Jesus said, he's talking about spiritual concepts, and it's like this. It's like the same reason people are questioning, well, when did this happen? Where's all this? Where's Jesus? Where is this? And it's like, he was literally describing a heavenly kingdom. And I almost thought about this. I was reading in Corinthians, and I thought this was interesting, is that Paul was talking about, he was comparing our bodies to tents. And he was talking about, Jesus is going to prepare a place for you. So like, we're in a tent now, but obviously we're going to be in a mansion one day. Obviously he's talking about our bodies. And I'm even thinking about like, so the law was a shadow of the thing that was to come. And in the book of Galatians, he's basically saying like, how am I going to build back what just was torn down to free me? And so think about it. Like, so if a lot of, pre-tribbers would probably believe this too, would be like, okay, so there are saints up in heaven with Jesus right now, right? So almost think about like the idea of like that we're freed from this fleshly thing, and like we're freed through the Spirit, right? But in people's minds now, so now they have to come down and be on the earth right now, like in this earth that we live on now. But it's like, isn't it better? It's like there's a kingdom in heaven that's already better than this. So it's almost like building back up what was just torn down. Like, we're free through the Spirit and the resurrection. And in the same way, like that, that people want the stuff that's here. It's kind of very similar in the way that I'm going to try to build back this old law that Jesus literally just died to free us from. You know what I'm saying? Like, because like that's already, and I was even there, I share with you guys in I guess I think it was Galatians that Paul was talking about. There's the law is basically the slavery in the Jerusalem that is, but the freedom is in the spirit that's in the Jerusalem that's above.
Yeah.
So he's already talking about New Jerusalem being in heaven already. So you think about like, so Jesus, Paul's saying that we're seated in heavenly places. So he's already talking about like this stuff is then, and like the idea that it has to come here. I do think that it sort of makes sense that even and still today, even during the millennial kingdom, if you're not one of the resurrected saints, you still have to deny your flesh, and you still have to walk in faith, and you still have to believe in something better than this. So it's like, so how much different was it really, unless you were one of the resurrected saints in a resurrected body?
But
you would still kind of have to hope for that eternal kingdom that we're sealed by the Holy Spirit that's in us. And so, like, to me, maybe that is a bigger deal than we think, because it's like if we're still saying God has not kept all his promises, which they're saying he hasn't, he's still got to do all this stuff with Israel. He's got to still do all this other stuff. Then you are kind of missing what Jesus came to do. And are we taking advantage of the things he's offered you right now? So I think that's where it can get dangerous. And that's why people get into this conflict about like, are those people really the people of Jacob? Are they really the right people in that land? And you're like, it's about promises of Jesus. He kept his promises. Isn't that funny? I haven't thought about it like that, in the way that the most simple way you could say it is like that the promise to Abraham was that he would make his descendants the sands of the sea, the stars in the sky, and through him, all nations would be blessed. Well, 100% of that promise has been kept. Could anyone deny that who's a believer? So Jesus was the culmination of the promises, and then so all nations were blessed through him, and he reconciled all nations back to him. Even Paul said that all people have been put under his feet, all his enemies. And that's what the Psalms are about how he was going to sit at the God's right hand until all his enemies were as a footstool under him. That's happened. And I think that like understanding like that God kept his promises, I think it's important.
I think people obviously talk about the Psalms there, and obviously taking back all authority, all his enemies under his feet. I think people try to apply that today, and it's kind of like, oh no, Islam needs to be defeated, or Russia or something. I don't know. People apply it to like enemies of Christendom today or something like that. It's kind of like, but they were clearly talking about the old gods of the nations that were presiding over these other countries at the time, and which talk about the divine council. We talk about Michael Heisler, let's say, where God basically appointed watchers over nations, but they became gods over those nations and abused that power. But when Christ came, he took it all back. He says, no, they're all back under me now. I am the only God now. You know what I mean? Like there's no other gods before me. I am the King of Kings. I'm here. I've taken all authority. I've descended. I've taken the keys to death. It's all on me. They have nothing. Your idols will be useless. Your oracles can no longer prophesy. It's kind of done. It's over. All my enemies are under my feet now, and I'm at the right hand of God. He fulfilled his promise. There's nothing else to. Yeah, it's done.
Well, isn't it crazy? And I was just thinking about this, like that. So, however you want to put this in your mind, like that when the Roman Empire became Christian, they literally outlawed all the pagan gods and all the pagan religions. And so like now, even when I made a video recently, people are still arguing. And I was saying the gods of the other religions are real. Like they're not real, like elevating them up to the level of the Most High God, but they are real as real entities. And I have people arguing with me if they're real or not. I don't think people understand how significant that is. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're right. Like, there's one true God. The Creator is acknowledged as the one true God. His son's Jesus, who's Lord. And all the other gods are just pretenders. And it's like everybody just acknowledges this. And that's not like, it's not viewed in the way of like That's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was a time when it wasn't like this, where it was like literally all the other nations went their separate ways and they followed these other gods. And God carved out this one tiny little nation through this one man, this one woman. And that was going to be, he was going to put his inheritance there. And through that, all nations were going to be blessed and become back under him.
Mm-hmm.
And then that happened. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like you wake up in a world that all that's already happened, and it's easy to take it for granted.
I think a lot of them are like, well, scripture doesn't tell me about that. It's kind of like, but the rest of human history after scripture is a story of Christendom taking over, of, like I said, these nations converting, of empires that last 1,000 years, like the Byzantine Empire being established. It's kind of like, what about the stories that came after the Bible that are human history that show a time where something divine was happening? Like something incredible happened, and we call it the Dark Ages, where Christianity ruled. It's kind of like, what? How did that happen? How did that happen? Do you know what I mean? It's like, that's a miracle.
Yeah.
That's an absolute miracle.
People, like I said, and it's kind of like, it's easy. I think even like, let's just say, based on the history we've been taught, I said, I can actually prove basically all this stuff happened already, because what I know is that during the Millennial Kingdom, that Jesus is going to rule with a rod of iron. Okay, let's just say he's ruling with a rod of iron from heaven. So he's using, in the same way God has always done, he's using other nations to judge other nations. So let's just say the majority of the world is Christian, and then you can even look at colonization, colonializing all these nations as an act of God judging these other nations, where it's like you get into the Incas and the Aztecs and all them doing all the wicked things they've done. And they'd be like, well, you know, Cortez was not really a good guy. Columbus was not a good guy. And it's like, these people were sacrificing each other to these demons. And then they got judged by, you know, Catholic or Christian nations. Everyone say, does that not sound sort of like ruling with a rod of iron? Even like the story of Cortez. Joe Rogan famously always brings this up. He talks about like Cortez came over and Cortez literally sunk their own boats, and there was barely any Spanish who were taking on all the Aztecs. And it was like, we're not going home. We're coming to do this. You know, so even thinking about like, is that not in some way kind of ruling with a rod of iron? Even like whatever the stuff with the Crusades, if you believe any of that stuff, even what we're taught, they went in there and they fought against these people because they had, you know, were they Knights Templar or whatever. The point is that they were doing things they claimed in the name of Christ our Lord.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't mean it was perfect. But there's this acknowledgement of like, yeah, these pagans need to, needs to stop. The stuff that was happening in Northern Europe, all the Wicker Man stuff, all the Druid stuff. All these Catholics did all these wicked things to these people. It's like, but these people were like literally burning people in a wicker statue to demons and fallen angels and whatever.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, someone actually left a comment just like you just said there. Now, like, oh, the Romans just turned themselves into Catholics and then invented Christianity to control people. It's like, no, they didn't. Where'd you get that from? You're just saying stuff now. Like, I don't like. It's like an opinion after the fact, isn't it? Because the Catholic Church today clearly has issues. So it's kind of like that can't be a good thing. But in the early stages, like, everyone was converting to Christianity. It was like it just was what was happening because the truth was just spreading. The gospel was spreading. And again, I'm not sure that our timeline is correct. I don't think the history of that time is as long as they make it out to be. I'm not even sure there was 400 and something years between 70 AD and 536 when that horrible event kicked off, you know. Well, you could make it akin to something like a tribulation-like event, you know. It's kind of, we don't know how much time was actually passed. We don't even know how much we can trust early church fathers' writings either, necessarily, in hindsight to all of this, or how far apart they were from each other as much as they claim. You know, because it's kind of like, well, the early church fathers weren't talking about a millennial reign. Were they just wrong? It's like, well, no, maybe they didn't actually wait as long as you think they did. Like, maybe the dates you've been given for when they existed wasn't like hundreds of years apart, but were more likely maybe they were 20 years apart from each other or something. It's like, you don't actually know. How can you can't, And this is the problem with the theory as well. This is one of the contentions people have against the idea. It's kind of like we have like a golden ticket out of any situation. So like, yeah, but history's been rewritten, so and that's another issue for us that we kind of have to contend with. But at the same time, it's kind of like, well, yeah, history has been rewritten. Like at the same time, it's kind of like, how can you be a conspiracy theorist and believe also these other conspiracies? Let's say. But you're not willing to concede that we've been lied to about this or this history necessarily. It's got some cognitive dissonance does come in. I mean,
well, yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that I will used to fall in this camp of like that, Constantine sees some vision in heaven and he realizes he needs to conquer in the name of Christ. Doesn't that sound almost like God, Jesus ruling with a rod of iron?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so if that's your world view, like I said, that's the history we've been taught, and it actually makes sense based on this happening. Maybe it's different than you thought it, like in your mind, what you thought the Millennial Kingdom would be. It was different than that. But I don't think that. I mean, I don't. It doesn't make sense to me that Constantine picked out this small little sect religion to turn the whole empire into, without it actually really God being involved in that.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
you know what I mean? And it doesn't mean he was a perfect man. It doesn't mean he became an apostle. It doesn't mean he became a pope or whatever, and he became some perfect man. It's like, have you read your Bible? There's only one perfect man in there. So there's lots of people people could look at the Old Testament. They're saying, did God accept that? Was that okay? And it's like, sometimes it's just a history of things that happen, and men are still men.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that again, if Jesus shows up offering a kingdom that they do not expect, that they don't really want, that they expected a Messiah that was different than him, and they rejected him because of that. Maybe it's always been like that. So people are still looking for that thing that he said it's not. Mm-hmm. When he says, like, the kingdom is not coming with ways that can be observed. And so then when it's being ruled with a rod of iron, people are like, well, those Christians sure are mean. It's like, well, they're purging out people who sacrifice each other. Mm-hmm. It's in the same way that that Israel was led into a promised land and then they fell away too. Mm-hmm. It's like I said, is that the cyclical part of like history, that they got corrupted by pagan nations eventually? And it's like, maybe that's part of like the devil being loosed. And yeah, those false gods are back. But isn't it kind of funny how they're back, but they're really not back? Because it's like people still say that they're fake, right? Mm-hmm. But some people are saying, no, they're actually real. But it's like, but that's the only way they were allowed to actually be reintroduced, is through wearing spandex and capes, like being like mythology, it's just fun stories. It's just traditions in history. Mm-hmm. It's not really actually real things. And that's the only way that you could put a statue up of one of these false gods, is because it's not real. Mm. So you're living in a completely different world than the world that's written in the Bible. Mm-hmm. When they literally were going to kill Paul because he was preaching a god that denied Artemis, their holy goddess. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they freaked out about that. They were not happy. Like they were like,
no,
they very seriously.
They put us all out of business over here.
That's what I mean. It's like I make good money doing this. It's kind of like, and they're saying like casting the demon out of the fortune teller. It's kind of like the bosses are like, you just cost me a lot of money. Take him to the court or take him to the police. It's kind of like, this guy just cost me a lot of money. Like the demon's gone. I needed that demon. Like they were very serious about it. Like they took it very seriously. Their gods were not a joke. They were very real, tangible. The gods I communicate with type of gods. But
definitely.
But today, for us, again, it's kind of like, oh, that's just myth. Nah, they weren't really talking to statues. The oracles didn't read. It was cold reading. Darren Brown proved that. He can do it, can't he? You know what I mean? It's like, it's all just psychological tricks. It's not real. They weren't really magicians turning staffs into snakes and stuff like that. It's kind of like, no, things were weird. Things were weird once, and
things were way different. And it's like, it's kind of like the things that like we know, but we don't really understand, that Jesus changed everything. Mm-hmm. But we don't really know what that means, because we have no idea what it was really like.
Well, the old gods were dead.
We only know what. Yeah, like it's interesting. I did a podcast. I'm sure you probably have talked about it. Who was it? that during that first century, it was announced that Pain was dead. Pain was dead, and the oracles could no longer see anything.
Mm-hmm.
That is, the timing of that is pretty remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it sounds like there might have been a war in heaven.
Absolutely.
Where these false gods got thrown down, and now they could no longer talk to the oracles and predict the future. It's like the acknowledgement of that is like in all the things that happened in the first century is amazing. If it's not all the things we're saying.
Well, when was Satan specifically bound for 1,000 years? Was it at Christ's crucifixion when he descended for 3 days? The harrowing of hell, was that when it happened? Was that when Satan was bound? Like, if it was immediate, then yeah, immediately. As soon as, even though not everyone was there to witness the event of Christ's death and resurrection, the effects of it were rippled out and felt through the entire world of pagan gods and false gods. Suddenly, idols stopped working, I assume. Everything just stopped. The old system wasn't working anymore. Then when the apostles rock up on their coasts and start preaching this new gospel, they're coming up to it, it's kind of like, is this why my gods aren't working anymore? Like, is this what happened? You know what I mean? It all makes sense suddenly, which is why many people would have converted. It's kind of like, oh, that's what happened. That's why.
Right. There was. I said. I really do think. As like, I think that's the thing. Like when people say they can't really get the difference between the millennial reign and the eternal kingdom. Well, the kingdom's forever, but it's 1,000 years. It's like, no, the kingdom is not for 1,000 years. What it says about the 1,000 years is the saints are resurrected before the 1,000 years, just to reign during the 1,000 years, and the devil's bound.
Yeah.
And so why is the devil bound? So he cannot deceive the nations anymore. And like I said, to me, that really is the proof, because if that's really what it's described being in the millennial kingdom, is that the devil's not allowed to deceive the nations anymore. Okay, so the fact that the world converts to Christianity kind of is proof to me that happened, because that's a spiritual thing. Because obviously, it's not like the Bible showing the devil just hanging out, just walking around everywhere. He's like sitting on the throne in Pergamum, Turkey. It's like, these are spiritual concepts. And when Satan's bound, it's like, we don't know that he's not around. But based on the results here, is that the gospel is being preached and it's being accepted. Why would, I mean, like, you really think about it, we know it's true. But there was a time where obviously was not accepted. I mean, you can't even imagine like how big a deal it would be. I mean, even like today, that if all the world leaders fell on their knees and actually believed in God for real, like, can you imagine that actually happening? I mean, it's like, well, put that times like 1,000, and that would have been the people who crucified Jesus accept him as Lord and change everything and burn their books that are the witchcraft books and destroy their idols, make every pagan ritual illegal, outlaw the Olympics because they're pagan. I mean, that literally happened. I don't know. I do think that people do not really appreciate how big a deal that was.
Do you think maybe with the release of Satan for the little season, that would have been, the old gods would have kind of reawakened in a sense, or they would have got the powers back? Do you think that comes with it? I'm just asking. I don't know I don't know the answer to this, but it seems like today there is a real power or a form of witchcraft which people are tapping into through methods like I write about, wearing masks and doing dances and taking drugs and rituals. They seem to be once again channeling things and gaining power from it, communicating with old gods, shall we say. Do you think the old gods in a way kind of, or is it all just now because the Nephilim are still kind of here? It's all just like a lesser form of what used to be.
I think,
I don't know.
I think of it like in the way that like they show you like in those movies like Harry Potter and like The Lord of the Rings, where it's like there's this whisper of this darkness that's returned, that's not even named.
Yeah.
And
interesting.
And then it's like it's growing in power. And then slowly it's corrupting people, and you're finding out who's actually communing with this evil. So I wonder if it's something like that. I mean, I wonder if that's what those movies are talking about. It's like this evil that we thought was gone has returned. And it's not embodied in like a man, or it's, like in those movies, it's trying to return into bodily form, but it's increasing based on, you can imagine like these demons, energy vampires. We really don't know. I mean, I've wondered, and I don't know if this is true or not, that when the devil was bound were the demons bound with him? Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe it really was just the devil.
Mm.
But maybe it was more. Maybe other things were bound and were let out with him. Probably. So I don't know. To me, it's like that's what makes sense. You see it in the culture where it's like, yeah, that the devil has probably there was a whisper of it, and then it's getting louder, and it's getting more powerful, and it's getting more pronounced. And to the point of like, you really think about like the whole idea of like the devil gathers the nations for this battle. Well, you're talking about like he's not hiding at that point anymore.
Mm.
It's like full rebellion, and it's like people are willing to go to war with God, whether that's a spiritual thing or it's a literal physical thing. Either way, it's like, yeah, the devil's gaining. He had to come out in the very simplest ways of like, he literally in reintroducing these old gods as fictional things until finally people actually start openly worshiping them and saying, oh, they're not actually fake. They're actually real and they're powerful and they can give you things.
It's more like the more attention we focus towards that aspect of things, the more power he kind of gains. Kind of like the demon like, it only has the power in so much as you believe it has the power, and the more fear you feed towards it, the stronger the demon gets, and the ability to manifest in the physical and eat kids, for example, is only because the kids actually fear it and genuinely believe in it. Does the devil kind of have that similar as it is released? That's the more we give the devil his due and focus on him and his power, the more power he does tend to gain in a little season, till it culminates in him manifesting as a savior with his army and the rest. You know what I mean? Is it that kind of slow progression type of thing?
I think that's probably likely true. I mean, I think that makes sense because if faith in Jesus can heal people in the Bible, and faith can heal people today, then what is that belief? It's all centered into that evil area. I mean, again, the devil is a copycat. I mean, it makes sense that if your faith is in God and your heart is going to the right places, that's good. And obviously you can all these good positive things come from it. And in the same way that you direct it to this negative energy. Yeah, like that.
Well, I
do believe
the world
it makes
reflects
sense.
it, doesn't it? Because obviously during a time when the devil was bound for 1,000 years, those people living during that time created beautiful things, inspired things. The world started to look pretty amazing. You know, these cathedrals were awe-inspiring. Even today, you look at a cathedral, your jaw drops. It's like, what on earth is that? Like, have you seen this thing? You know, but now, what do we create? We create brutalist architecture. Everything is grey, colourless, drab, utilitarian. And that's a reflection, clearly, of our focus. We're not inspired anymore. And clearly, we have the devil leading us or whispering in our ears. It's kind of like, don't waste money on making things look good. Save some money and just make it a cube with a window or two. You know what I mean? It's kind of things like that. No. You know, it's little things like that start to happen, doesn't it? And it's kind of like, oh, you don't have time to add embellishments to the awnings of the inside of your house and the outside of your house. Forget about that. Just move on to, to something else. You know what I mean? Go play that video game instead. It's kind of like, you don't have time for that. You're tired. You're ill. You've got your knees acting up again. It's kind of like there's always that pushing towards mankind getting lazier, less inspired, less willing to make things beautiful, less willing to reflect God's kingdom on the earth, which is what it is, essentially. The 1,000-year reign was God's heavenly kingdom manifesting on earth through the people who were inspired without the devil.
I see, and I think that's my belief now. I think that we are capable of the things that you see. And we can't even imagine that we are, but it's because our belief is in this system that's like literally like these invisible shackles, this matrix they put us into. And so like they are depressing the human spirit. And so we don't believe we can, so therefore we can't. Isn't it funny? Like even everybody knows this is true, is that like stress becomes physical ailments at some point, right? So you have this worry, and then this worry becomes stress, and then you have this stress, and you have a result physically in your body. So usually it starts with a spiritual thing, and then it turns into a mental thing, and then it turns into a physical thing. So you manifest that out through the whole world. And you go from beautiful things to drab things and awful things deteriorating because our spiritual condition is deteriorating. And it's like, yeah, we don't believe we can. And I think that, I mean, of course, I believe that it makes sense that the controllers in this place don't have our best interests in mind. If their only goal is to control us, to accumulate more power and money, well, that everything's reflected in the things we have.
Mm-hmm.
But if you did live in a time where it was not like that, imagine if the best of us were given free reign to help everyone. Like, I do believe that the stuff that you see, like the grand structures are possible, but not in the way things are going now. Like if there was a time where like people said, hey, there's actually this machine that actually can produce free energy and you don't have to work as much as you do now. Can you imagine how much weight would be lifted off people's shoulders and they would be able, the freedom that would create to create good things?
Well, absolutely.
Like I really do think it would be, it's kind of limitless. I don't really know where the end of that would be, but clearly that's not the world we live in now.
I think people, given the resources and time, can do amazing things. I give credit to you. We're made in the image of God. God's a creator. So are we.
Mm-hmm.
We can create beautiful, incredible work. Like I said, I lived next to a cathedral for 3 years, and there's a place just next to the cathedral, masons, and they're not like Freemasonry. They're just actual stone masons. That's the job. That's the profession,
Mm-hmm.
And they maintain the cathedral, and they build beautiful things and replace them on the cathedral. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, we can do it. We can build them, and put them, like, replace bricks and replace facades. And sure, there's been some hidden stuff going on there where they're hiding things that used to be there, you know what I mean, or whatever. But the point is, we can make things out of stone. We can do it. It's just, but they're like publicly through donations funded organization doing it specifically specialist type thing. It's kind of like, it costs money and effort and time for them to do it, and they're being paid a fair amount to do that. But these were built during a time, like you said, where people were unencumbered by things like energy, having everything. It was abundant. Life was good. They had the time.
Had to be.
It was different. It was a completely different environment that we couldn't even imagine. We couldn't imagine that. And like I said, by people unencumbered by Satan, could we even fathom what that would be like? And like, we know we're living in a time where Satan's clearly here doing his thing. Like, we know we're in that time, and it baffles me, this confusion people who don't like this idea have. It's kind of like, this can't be the new heaven and earth they jump to. It's like, who said that? Who said this is
right?
Who said that Satan's not here?
I think that those people, those people always want to push us into positions that seem ridiculous because they can argue against that. That's the straw man they create. Like the one I've heard a lot is that, okay, because we believe in the little season, that makes us preterists, and preterists believe that all this has taken place. The whole Bible's been fulfilled, and therefore, if the mark of the beast comes, you're obviously going to get it because you believe it's already came, and you're going to encourage other people to get it. So it's like, no, I'm not. Like, I don't trust the government. So like, no, I'm not getting anything like that. So like, whether it's the mark of the beast or not, no, I'm not getting that thing they say you have to get in order to buy or sell. I'm just not doing that anyways. But that's, like I said, that's the ridiculous positions they put us into. It's funny though. I should bring this up before we have to go. I probably should make a video about this, but I asked ChatGPT, did the early church fathers ever talk about a third temple? What do you think the answer is?
No.
Of course they didn't. So like, I have to probably dig down and ask ChatGPT eventually, like, so when did they start talking about a third temple? Because it was automatically known at some point that either Christ was the temple, because there's verses about that, obviously in Revelation, but then there's obviously that we are the temples of the Holy Spirit. But it was like, there was never a notion that they needed to build the third temple before things could be fulfilled. So just think about that. So if that's the newest theology, that's the newest eschatology, that obviously it doesn't even make sense unless there is a Zionist nation in 1948. There was never a thought that there was going to be a third temple. I mean, not saying that people didn't want to build another one, because there would have been obviously this sect of people who would have wanted one. but the church never actually considered that.
Well,
so what is that?
They'd have
so
no
what
reason
is that?
to. They'd have no reason to consider it because they didn't need the temple for the sacrifices anymore. It's kind of like it would have been a no point to imagine. And obviously, the prophecy that this temple would be torn down happened in 70 AD anyway. So it's kind of I don't understand this third. It's like Jewish, some kind of Jewish mythos. And even when you think about the concept of, okay, so we need to build this temple so we can destroy it to fulfill prophecy. What an odd thing to do. What is such an
well,
odd
that's what I was saying. I was like, just think about that whole idea. That's what I was saying. I was like, okay, so what we're supposed to believe is the first temple God really never wanted, actually. It was like kind of like that even God's telling David, like, do you think that I need to be living something that was built by human hands? And he's like, but David's heart was right, so he let him build. He let his son build it. And then the second temple was all about atonement. He was going to, that was the Daniel prophecy, was 70 weeks, and it was about atonement. And so he gathered the people back into the land to build this temple again, so for a second chance at this. So then obviously 70 AD happens. Everything's destroyed. Yeah, so literally God gathered all those people back in the land, and then Jerusalem was destroyed, the temple was destroyed. So what we're supposed to believe now is God's waited 2,000 years to gather them back in the land one more time so he could destroy Jerusalem again. And to build a temple and the city that he didn't really want, just so he could destroy it again. And then they're going to be saved.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound kind of stupid to anyone else?
It makes zero sense to me. Like it and also it, by saying we need to build another temple is also to kind of deny that Christ's work was sufficient enough as well. I don't know. Maybe because I wasn't raised in the church, for me it just seems a little bit more crazy than usual. But it's kind of a
no. I'm saying like that was almost the light bulb moment when I was reading through Daniel, and it was like, wait a minute. So the Antichrist is supposed to stop the sacrificing in the temple. I was like, but they haven't been sacrificing in any temples.
No. Well, it's kind of like they say, well, it's like the man.
As I say, they have to build. So they have to build one now just to stop sacrificing, but they haven't been sacrificing though.
But it's like, oh, well, we need to build the temple so the man of perdition can stand in it and proclaim to be God. And it's kind of like, what are you talking about? So you're going to be able to identify immediately then who the anti. It's like you're creating the scenario to then easily point out who the bad guy is, and it's kind of like that's not how it would have worked. That's not how. The whole point was that before tribulation, he would have been in the temple proclaiming to deceive people away. But you can't be deceived if you built the temple for the guy to stand in. It's kind of none of it is logically it's flawed unless you're trying to put on a performance.
You know what I started?
Other people, you know what I mean? It's kind of it's clearly a performance piece, isn't it? You're making it all up. You're building the temple and hiring the guy to stand in it. Clearly, like it's kind of the whole thing's a fabrication.
Oh yeah, you know what? I was on a podcast, interesting, and this person brought this point up, and I never really thought about it in the way that he brought it up, but I thought about. So when Paul says, when he talks about that, the rebellion needs to come first. Some translations say the following way, but the rebellion makes perfect sense in the context that the Jews rebelled against the Romans, and then all the stuff happened, right? Like Jacob's trouble happened.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it interesting if you think about it? So like, who was the Messiah they were looking for? They were looking for a conquering king that was going to lift them out from under the Roman oppression.
Yeah.
And so I never considered this, and maybe this is something that, maybe this is just there's nothing here, and maybe this is just something that's not written in history too much. But what if a false Christ showed up then? An antichrist, maybe not like the one you thought might be the antichrist, but was leading, like helping them lead the idea of this rebellion against Rome.
Mm-hmm.
It's like almost like that's the kind of person that they would have got behind, because it's interesting to think that these people knew the timeline of Daniel's 70 weeks. And they were fighting, and you don't think, like, do you think that they thought this was Jacob's trouble when they were fighting against the Romans? I bet you they did. And there was, obviously there's stories of the zealots that were fighting so hard against the Romans because they thought God was going to save them.
Mm-hmm.
Because they thought about the Zechariah prophecies and Zechariah, 14, about how they were not one of them was going to die. So they fought so hard to win, and then obviously that led to the destruction of Jerusalem.
Mhm.
I just think that's an interesting concept that like they were literally like they might have had multiple false Christs, like as Jesus predicted. We're going to show up, going to claim to be him,
Leading
and they were going to lead them into this earthly, fleshly kingdom where they defeat the Romans.
many generals and leaders during the Roman-Jewish War might be good candidates for this. So we have to look into that.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But we don't really know who those people were. We really don't.
What if it was Barabbas? Who was really
right?
the one who chose,
I mean,
because he was a rebellious leader, wasn't he? That's why he was there to begin with. And they said, we want Barabbas. Maybe it was him.
Right? No, I mean that kind of stuff fits because it's like they are looking for a certain kind of a Messiah,
a sword wielding, war rebellious leading Messiah who's going to bring the destruction to the nations against Israel and establish Israel as a dominant kingdom overall type of thing. And in a way, that kind of happened during the ruling with a rod of iron Millennial Reign establishment stuff, but not in the way they thought it was going to happen, and not to the people at the time who believed we're going to get it because they gave it to the Gentiles. You know what I mean? Instead. So it's kind of like it all because they denied him when he was there in the flesh. So it's kind of, well, now we're getting into
no, that's what I'm saying. It's like it's kind of amazing. It kind of makes perfect sense that they're looking for a conquering king. They might even try to prop one up for a time, but it did not work out, and that led to the destruction. That's kind of like in the way that Pharaoh hardened his heart, and then all the plagues of Egypt happened. God manifests his power through that. In the same way, it's like, they rejected the real Messiah in order to prop up a fake one that literally led to all the other prophecies God said were going to happen. I mean, to me, like it makes perfect sense. And then the people today who believe in dispensationalism saying, oh, well, there's still the separate covenant carved out for the Jews, and then they're going to get saved at the end. And you're like, but do you see how jacked up that actually sounds? Do you see how that makes God almost seem like a very, like uncaring about those people? Because it's like God could usher in the end times anytime and save the last generation of those people, right? But what is he waiting for to do that? You know what I'm saying? Like that it makes sense in the way that when Peter's saying like that 1,000 years is a day and a day is 1,000 years, he's saying like God's not slow to fulfill his promise. He's patient, wishing that no one would perish, but they would all repent. That only makes sense in the context he's talking to a generation of people. You have a chance to repent now. Okay, so outside of that, you have generation after generation after generation, like almost 50 generations of people not repenting, dying without, salvation, in order for one day God to save the last generation standing. You know what I'm saying? Like, doesn't it make more sense that all those promises were kept, and then every generation after that had the option of accepting his son?
Oh yeah,
not being forced to at the last moment, where finally the Messiah came, like the one they actually wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't it sound so much worse? Like that. Oh well, they rejected Jesus, but because they're respecting this kind of Messiah, well, that one's going to come soon, and then they can accept him.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, doesn't that seem like that doesn't really sound like something like God would do? Jesus shows up humble and meek as a sign to say that this is a denial of this stuff, in order to get the stuff that you can't see that's forever. Not showing up like the guy they actually wanted, thinking they're going to get all the physical things.
It's funny. I was just talking with someone called Greg. He runs a channel called Glink, and he talks about a lot of things on his channel, and it's quite a big channel actually. But he came on to share with me about the anime Berserk, and he was going through and he was saying how like the main villain in this is like an antichrist figure who seems to be leading like a people who love him to like a kingdom. He's trying to build a kingdom. And that's what he believes he's working towards. But he starts like a ragtag team of like mercenaries and ends up going through the ranking of the kingdom and getting more like recognition. But what he has to do to get his kingdom is he has this talisman, which is linked to demons, and he basically sacrifices all of his men to gain a kingdom, and he ends up gaining a heavenly kingdom. He gets ascended into like this heavenly realm and becomes one of like the 5 archangels of this. It's demonic as hell, basically. He becomes like he basically becomes a fallen angel. But the protagonist is this sword wielding kind of like hero who's just relentless with this sword. All he does is attack and kill demons, basically, and like fights against this evil kingdom, basically. And it's kind of, the guy was saying, it's kind of like he's like Jesus in a way, like he's the savior to go against this antichrist figure. Do you know what I mean? But I said to him, well, you need to be careful about that, because that Jesus character with the sword you're representing there is the one the Jews wanted. The one to lead the rebellion with the sword and go against it with fighting, you know, and battle and these type of things. And it's kind of, that's who they were expecting. He was talking about, you know, it's the guy, Link, for example, from The Legend of Zelda, is the sword wielding against all odds, against the Goliath. Sword savior with a sword attitude, you know what I mean? Or Aragorn from Lord of the Rings is the savior, rebellious leader with the sword, you know, who was originally like a mercenary for hire. It's the same method over and over again. It's kind of like, this is supposed to be like a Jesus analog. I said, yes, that's the Jesus they wanted. They wanted the guy with the sword to bring battle and to destroy their enemies. But that's not the Jesus that they got. Like, and I find a lot of this media does seem to always be portraying that Jesus.
Right. Well,
You know what I
the
mean?
funny
It's
part
kind of
about it is
like-
even the way almost the way you're describing the bad guy was like, that actually sounds like a twisted version of like what the truth was. It's like that they end up sacrificing themselves and then they get a heavenly kingdom.
But in that version,
So that's
sacrificed his
portrayed as the bad.
followers. In that version,
Well,
he
I know,
sacrificed his
but
followers
you
instead.
think about it.
Yeah, so
Have
it's
you
like
seen have you seen that the last Thor movie?
I
Where
didn't
it was
watch.
like the God Killer was in it.
I've seen clips of it.
Man, that beginning part is like, obviously they go into some garden and he's basically saying there's no heavenly reward, and he's basically like, I'm willing to sacrifice all you guys because that's what people who worship their God should be willing to do. So my point is like that is what, I mean, if you think about it, Jesus is telling the disciples, are you willing to drink for the cup that I'm going to drink from? And he's like, trust me, you will. And so like from a twisted perspective, they would say, well, yeah, look what God did to his followers. He let them let them out to be slaughtered. You know, so like in their minds, so like in the Gnostic view, that's how they would view that. And then the good guy is actually saving everyone.
Yeah,
He's saving their lives, when Jesus is literally saying those who would seek to save their lives will lose it. And those who are willing to lose it for my sake will find it.
Yeah.
And so like, so like that's presented in that way where it's like, oh, this is the bad guy is doing that. And again, like it's obviously this is not a pure representation of Jesus. It's like from a evil perspective saying like that's how they would view him.
He is actually portrayed like he has this charismatic air to him. People just love him and follow him. He just talks with purpose. Everything he does, he knows he's meant for something great and divine. And he will ascend to have his kingdom, and everything he's doing is working towards that. And those who follow him, he owns them. They belong to him in a sense. That's kind of how he sees it and acts, you know. So it's basically Jesus, but evil Jesus. And they portray him, they portray him as
think about
evil
Thanos.
character.
Think about you know the first thing, the first or the end, or not end game, but Infinity War. The very beginning of that movie, they have his one guy, the Maw, walking around saying, and they're all like dying on the ship, and he's like, you think this is suffering? No, this is salvation. Even in death you have become children of Thanos. And he's literally saying like that, like, so Thanos is a representation of Jesus in this movie, and so the world is seeing him like that. And he's got it, you know, like, and obviously in Thanos's mind, he's got a very noble cause he's doing something people are not willing to do. And he's actually willing to sacrifice his favorite offspring in order to get it done. I mean, it's really jacked up, but I mean, like that's their perception of things. And then, the people here, they cannot wrap their minds around it. That's why like the Avengers are always trying to stop some threat from the heavens to protect Earth. So they're the mightiest heroes of the Earth. And what are they trying to say? They're trying to save a wicked place that deserves to be judged. You know, and I think that's ultimately like the whole point of like the whole Christianity. It's like that that we all deserved 70 AD. We all deserve judgment. And we should accept the fact that that's what we deserve.
It's funny,
but the earth is saying, no, we don't deserve that. Look how great we are.
It's funny. I basically gave a very similar speech in the last talk I just did, that you just did. It's kind of like it's people's perspectives. It's kind of like God's judgment is righteous, but the person getting judged and suffering the consequences might not feel that way. It's kind of, you know what I mean?
Right.
But trust me, if they're getting judged like that by God, they did something to deserve it. It's not like it's kind of like an unrighteous judgment, but it's kind of like those who are, like you said, what kind of cruel God would treat somebody like that? It's like, but you did the most heinous things and denied God. It's kind of like people have a problem with judgment.
Well, what people would say is like that if God is good, why did he allow this stuff? Okay, God comes in to judge a place. Well, why is he doing that? Who does he think he is?
Well, God. It's kind of like,
yeah. Why does he get to change? Why does he get to judge? I mean, it goes down to like the when Jesus is talking about how the one lawyer is saying, at least I'm not as bad as that guy, the tax collector, who's saying like that I'm, who's over there groveling, saying I'm scum, I deserve all the bad things I get. And it's like, so who's going to be judged?
Yeah.
In that scenario, the person who thinks they deserve to be judged versus the one who says, I'm not as bad as them. And that's the world. That's what the world's doing. Or the world at this point, they would really say like, well, it's kind of perspective. I don't think anybody's bad. And you're like, but that's a lie.
Well, we accept judgment from men in pulpits with gavels and silly wigs. We understand what judgment is. We understand what the law is and what it means to break a law and to suffer the consequences. But when we apply that same logic to God, suddenly he's a bad guy. And it's kind of, but you'll give that judgment to men? You allow them to make those type of judgments? You think men can make a better moral judgment than God? It's kind of, when you really logically think about it, it's kind of like, why would you not want God to be the judge and arbiter? Like, he's the only, men are fallible.
Well, you know why you wouldn't want that.
Well, because we're all sinners.
Well, no, I mean, I would say that for the people who don't want him to be the judge is because they're not good.
They've got something worth judging for.
Yeah, they're the ones who are going to be judged, and it's obviously that's why, that's like the ultimate rebels. Like that's the rebellion is against him, because there's really not much they can do.
For leave judgment to him, we're screwed. It's that kind of attitude, isn't it? Which again, it's like, so let's make him Thanos, and we're the superheroes, and we're gonna. It's kind of like, let's leave his judgment out.
That's the way it's presented, and I think that, and that's why, again, like the why, that's how, to me, that's really the only way the devil could deceive people in the short season, is that you go all the way back to the people who were deceived in the first century to think that that's really not the Messiah, or to reject them even if they did know it was him, because he's not. Where's all the, it's like you said, it's almost exactly in the same way that people say, Paul, when did this happen? Where's Jesus? When did this happen? And they're saying like, he can't be this. He's not from where he's supposed to be from. He's from Nazareth. No, he can't be the Messiah. He can't be this. Where's John? Where's Elijah? Where's this? He's supposed to be just like this. And then, but there he was. And then, so like, he's saying that, oh yeah, they're questioning about where's the kingdom. And that's when he's like, you can't see it. That wasn't good enough for them. And so the same way people are saying, where's the kingdom at then? Where's Jesus at? Well, Jesus is in the kingdom. Where's the kingdom at? Kingdom's within us. Well, I don't like that. So like in that same way, it would be easy to say, well, I'm just going to stick with the kingdom that I've imagined in my own head. Like that's the one I want, and the people in Israel will accept that one too. It's gonna be fantastic. And if you guys don't believe in it, you guys won't get there.
It's gonna be fantastic. I like that. Maybe that's a good place to leave it there. That was a long 15 minutes. Thanks. Was a
long 15 minutes, but it was always good. I should have known that we could never talk for just 15 minutes.
No, I think people enjoyed it as well. Thanks to Jason Jack for joining the chat as well. He's been dropping in there a few little gems. And what did he say? He says, this topic, this eschatology, the little season, is in its infancy right now. Like, we have just started. We have just started to like rediscover this. Like, it's always been the truth, but as you know, we've only really just realized it properly. There's, like I said, there's been formalized worldviews like preterism around to try and control the narrative on what people think about this type of thing. But in the context of what we're talking about today, with the evidences we have available to us, this is new. This is brand new. This is something else.
Yeah,
now.
that's true.
And
that's true.
It's again, the kickback has begun. Like I said, because we're going to forget. Billions, even millions of Christians do not believe what we're talking about. The majority, like 90, and they're going to start hearing this now, and there's going to be a lot more cognitive dissonance flying around the internet in the coming years because of this idea, this topic. I'm excited to see how it all pans out, to be honest.
We'll know we've made it when your YouTube video has a little wiki, little disclaimer. The little season is an antiquated idea. It's a conspiracy theory.
Well, as soon as they do that, then they're acknowledging that Christianity is correct, and that's by default. What did I see the other day what did I see that proved that? Something about scientists have found the location of Noah's Ark or something like that from the Daily Mail. And I commented, like, I thought it was all fairy tale and didn't exist. Like, what is it, secular people? Make your mind up. Either Noah's Ark existed or it was all made up. Like, why?
Yeah, could you deny? I mean, it is kind of crazy to think about. Like, could you deny any of it if they found Noah's Ark?
Well, they're claiming they have found Noah's Ark. It's like, I thought.
I know, but what I'm just saying, like, did anybody who's willing to acknowledge there's a Noah's Ark? You're kind of acknowledging, like, almost like the really hardest parts to prove, because like that stuff happened a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. Well, exactly, yeah, and that proves a flood, right, and everything else, and
that proves. And that, I mean, like I said, it proves a big portion of Genesis. So I mean, like, yeah, that they could even, yeah, we should just probably leave it here. But I did like that one. A couple of people have been talking about lately is that they say, would you believe Christianity if it was true? And that's obviously the debate question of, like, because if you say no, well, then obviously you're exposing your own bias.
Mm-hmm.
If you're acknowledging that Noah's Ark is literally on Mount Ararat, okay, well, so why don't you believe then?
I just don't want to.
At least we can be honest. At least you can be honest. You're free to choose that.
I like the kingdom in my own head. Thank you very much. I'm going to stick to my own kingdom. But yeah, there we go. Thanks, Joe, for doing this. I really appreciate it. You've managed to fill the last hour of my show for me effortlessly. And it's late.
All right, well, no problem. Man.
It's late for me now. Anyway, so I am going to have to get going. But thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. And everyone who's listening, I hope you've enjoyed this. I did not see this coming, but I appreciate it as always. We'll have to get Vitali back in on this and see if we can get something else going another time.
We'll do that again soon.
We'll figure it out on the group chat. But yeah, thanks for listening, guys. I appreciate it. And as always, God bless.
God bless.
When ordinary people think of autumn, they imagine shorter days, cozy fires, curling up with a great piece of literature, and basking in the warming scent of cinnamon with shades of burnt orange, which your other half has decided to spend the life savings on to decorate the home for only 2 months, just as God intended. Yet we must remember that this transition into the frosty abyss of winter creates the perfect conditions for the spread of the pathogen known as Halloween. This disease causes people to dress like demons and go door to door asking for free stuff. This public service announcement aims to give you the correct tool to help you deal with these contagious commie behaviors when they manifest in your local community. First, you'll want to arm yourself with multiple shots of the best-selling paperback on Amazon called The Nephilim Looked Like Clowns. With this PPE, you're fully equipped and well protected to handle what's to come next. Second, have a pumpkin spice latte and white girl autumn your time away in knitted cream shackets and pilgrim hats, because soon enough, Samhain begins. This is when the veil between the spirit realm and the physical world is at its thinnest, and possession, the main symptom of Halloween, is more commonly presented, causing this type of unironic cringe to start happening. Just look at him. This poor soul thinks he looks cool. And if you're not careful, this could be you. Together we can stop the spread of Halloween and flatten the curve. When you see fully grown adults playing dress-up and mirroring unspeakable horrors from beyond the void, remember your training and cure their vapid sense of self-identity by handing them one of our favourably reviewed treatments. Your country must develop herd immunity to seasonal cringe. So, spread the cure far and wide. Just like the cure, this disease does not discriminate by age. Emulating the infected, you will see children running around in bedsheets, knocking on doors, begging for sugary treats, and threatening to damage your well-earned property. Make sure to fill their novelty buckets with the one thing all children secretly want: a well-rounded and relatable education in biblical history. That'll stop the spread. The Nephilim look like clowns, and the inevitable booster volumes are currently the only known cure to thinly veiled demon channeling holidays. This is your best defense against this pandemic of spooky proportions. All you have to do is trust the science. Which you know we did, because I'm showing you people wearing lab coats and looking serious. Get your copy on Amazon today, and be prepared for tomorrow. Side effects of reading The Nephilim Look Like Clowns include, but are not limited to, a feeling of existential crisis, a well-rounded knowledge of a Christian contrarian view on human history, a foundational understanding of spiritual warfare, and a healthy aversion to clowns.